Africanism to the young Africans of today. The importance of the movement to the African people's development, survival, and progress is so important that it cannot be overemphasized. It is one of the things which unfortunately we don't teach to our children in our schools, but which is so pertinent to make Africans grow up with a certain spirit of unity, of oneness, of self-confidence, of a can-do spirit, and an ethos that propulses them to the future. We're talking about exploring the oceans, exploring space. But these cannot, and other things, they cannot be achieved unless we inculcate in our youth a spirit of self-reliance, of self-worth, self-belief, and self-belief in yourself. Know where you came from, know where you came to, what you went through, what tribulations you had to undergo to get where you are, and to know that whatever difficulties you have in face of you, you'll always triumph if you believe in yourself and if you connect with your fellow African and other human beings. Of course, you can always triumph over all those tribulations. President Mbeki will be making a trip to South Africa to come and present you with a copy. It's a very small book, but full of information. And I know that your foundation will be interested in having young people learn about how Africa got where we are. In 1975, moderator please. 1975, on the 11th of November, I was sitting in a parade in Luanda when the Cuban troops descended in Angola. We had arrived the previous night with the Lopo de Nascimento receiving us at the airport. He was then Prime Minister of Angola. And I was accompanying the Prime Minister of Congo Brazzaville, Henri Lopez, and he received us with these words: "Welcome to Luanda, capital of a country without a government." And we said, "How so?" And he said, "Because at midday today, the last Portuguese governor called a conference here, said goodbye, and took his flag, took a boat to the ship in the high sea, and he has left for Lisbon." And that night, the BBC was announcing that the South African forces, South African, not these ones, huh? I'm talking about the South African forces of that time, in collaboration with UNITA and FNLA, had surrounded Luanda. And we were, with the colleagues, the comrades who were with me at the time, we were talking about the Paris Commune, 1871. We are surrounded, and now the forces that were against the Commune are going to pick us one after another, and we are finished. But when we saw those Cubans marching down the streets in Luanda, we knew this war is not over. And they went on. 3 or 4 years later, there was the historic Battle of Quito-Cuanaval. And from then on, the rest, as they say, is history. In 1994, we witnessed the end of apartheid. And that is solidarity. That is Pan-African solidarity. Some people would not classify Fidel Castro as a Pan-Africanist, but he was. Fidel Castro was a Pan-Africanist, Raúl Castro was a Pan-Africanist. A lot of the government of Cuba were Pan-African. Some of them were actually Afro-Cubans, to make it even more poignant. So was Gamal Abdel Nasser. So was Ahmed Ben Bella, who were Arabs, but who supported the African cause, especially in the liberation of the African continent. So young people, please read as much as possible. Don't necessarily read my book, read other books about Pan-Africanism, and we'll be together. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Professor Shivji, before you speak, will you allow me to invite everyone in the room who is under the age of 30 to stand up? If you are under, I know, I feel like standing up, but it's not the reality. Your Excellency, you may stand up out of honor. If you are under the age of 30, wanafunzi, nomba msimame, please stand up. Professor Shivji, I'm going to ask you to talk directly to the future of the continent. Your 1-minute parting shot, they represent millions of Africans on the continent, but they are fortunate to be in the room with these giants today. What is your parting word to the youth of Africa?
Let me say a few words. Maybe, please, Kaeni, asante sana. I just want to sort of start with a personal note. If what Professor Kabudi said that my school in Kilosa is being refurbished, that makes me very happy, because when I visited Kilosa in December last year, it was in a dilapidated state. And the whole of Kilosa town was destroyed. It's not the town that I knew and in which I grew up. And I think that's the state of many of our places. Second point to Jenerali about teaching of Pan-Africanism. I totally agree with him. When I was the chair of Pan-African Studies at the University of Dar es Salaam, we introduced a course on Pan-Africanism at the University of Dar es Salaam. Okay? Now, how far it is still there, but it's not just sufficient to have teaching. There must be debates on it. And these debates must be allowed. And these debates must be in a public forum. So you don't simply end up discussing Pan-Africanism in the classroom. You discuss Pan-Africanism in your halls, in your cafeteria, okay? In your school compounds, in your sports. That requires an atmosphere where there is no fear of discussing, of talking. Okay? So that's important. Teaching and discussions and debates should go hand in hand. Okay? So I think if our young people are to learn the rich history of Pan-Africanism, and the history of Pan-Africanism is very rich. How many of our young people know that the first African revolution was in Haiti? Okay? How many of our people know how the Haitians fought? The famous, amazing book by Sailor James, The Black Jacobins. This should be a mandatory text in our schools. You know? And there's so much written on Pan-Africanism. But neither our students, but nor our teachers, nor our faculty members are ready or actually introduce our students to it. And we keep blaming the young people. I think we should blame ourselves for our failure not to refer to it. So I agree with you, and I think on that line we should continue. And I think public forums like this help us to let some of us let off our steam, because we don't get this opportunity very often. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, the beauty of asking your esteemed panelists to summarize and share their takeaways means I have nothing more to do as the moderator.